He protected the alien princess with his life. Now, the queen refuses to let him leave. Peace talks with humanity were finally moving forward after decades of tension. Crowds gathered along the Grand Avenue, eager to see the royal procession. At the center of it all was Princess Elira. She stood tall inside the open transport platform, her silver-blue armor polished to perfection. To her people, she was more than royalty. She was hope. The one chosen to lead the future of their empire into a new age of cooperation. Around her stood elite Virelian guards, tall, powerful beings with 4 arms and glowing eyes. Each one carried advanced weapons capable of tearing through steel. They had trained for years to protect the royal bloodline. And yet, among them stood one being who did not belong. He was human. His name was Captain Daniel Cross. Compared to the Virelians, Daniel looked small, fragile. His armor was simple, dark, and worn from years of service. No glowing weapons, no extra limbs, just a human soldier with steady eyes and a calm expression. Many of the alien guards openly questioned his presence. A human, one of them muttered through a translator. If danger comes, he will fall in seconds. Princess Elira noticed him watching. "You do not fear this place," she said quietly, turning her head just enough to look at him. Daniel shook his head. "Crowds are crowds, doesn't matter the planet." "You know," she said, "many believe you are unnecessary." From a balcony high above, Queen Veilrix watched. She was ancient by human standards, her presence commanding even from a distance. Her sharp gaze followed every movement below, especially the human. She did not trust easily, and yet she had approved this assignment herself. The procession stopped. Princess Elira stepped forward to address the crowd. Today was meant to be safe. It was meant to be symbolic. It was meant to be perfect. That was when Daniel felt it, a shift, a wrongness in the air. His eyes snapped to the left. A reflection flashed where none should be. "Princess," he said sharply, stepping closer. "Move now." A hidden weapon fired from a disguised drone, tearing through the air with deadly speed. Alien guards shouted in confusion, some raising shields, others turning too slowly. The first blast struck the platform's edge. Screams erupted. Daniel did not think. He moved. He grabbed the princess and shoved her backward with all his strength. At the same time, he stepped forward, raising his body between her and the incoming fire. The second blast hit him square in the chest. Pain exploded through his body. His armor cracked. Warning screamed inside his helmet. He was thrown backward but stayed on his feet through sheer will. Elira fell hard against the platform, staring at him in shock. Human. Daniel turned sideways, absorbing it along his shoulder. Bone cracked. His vision blurred. Still, he stood. Alien guards finally reacted, firing at the drone, but more attackers revealed themselves in the crowd. Chaos spread through the plaza. Daniel drew his weapon and fired with precision, dropping 2 attackers while placing himself directly in front of the princess again. A blade of energy sliced toward them. He stepped forward, it tore into his side. He gasped but did not fall. To the aliens watching, it made no sense. He was injured, bleeding, his body clearly failing. Why did he not retreat? Why did he not run? Because humans did not abandon those under their protection. Daniel fell to one knee as another blast struck his leg. His weapon clattered to the ground. Still he reached out. Still he moved. With shaking arms, he pulled the princess closer and turned his body fully toward the attackers. He spread himself over her like a shield. The final blast hit his back. Everything went silent. For a moment, no one moved. The attackers were neutralized seconds later by the royal guard, but no one noticed. All eyes were fixed on the human lying motionless on the platform, smoke rising from his armor. Princess Elira's hands trembled as she touched his helmet. "Daniel," she whispered. There was no answer. Blood pooled beneath him, dark red against alien metal. A sound escaped her throat that no one had ever heard from a Virelian royal before. A cry of pure fear. High above, Queen Veilrix gripped the balcony railing. Her guards spoke urgently around her, but she heard none of it. She had seen warriors die before, she had seen sacrifice, but never like this. Never from a species so often called weak. Medical teams rushed forward. They carefully turned Daniel onto his back. His breathing was shallow, irregular. Human life signs fading, one medic said. Princess Elira knelt beside him, ignoring protocol. "You saved me," she said, her voice breaking. "You didn't have to." A human, soft-skinned, short-lived, supposedly fragile, had stood against weapons meant to kill gods, and he had not moved. Queen Veilric straightened slowly. In that moment, something fundamental shifted inside her. This was not weakness. This was something far more dangerous, and far more powerful. "Take him to the Royal Medical Wing," she commanded, her voice echoing across the plaza. Immediately. And somewhere deep within the royal halls, the queen began to wonder. His body was covered in burns and fractures. Human bones had cracked under weapons designed for much larger beings. His armor had been cut away, leaving medical seals glowing across his chest and back. Alien doctors worked carefully, their expressions tense. "Human physiology is inefficient," one medic said quietly. "So many weak points." Princess Elira stood beside her, her hands clasped tightly. Her armor was gone now, replaced with simple royal garments, but traces of dried human blood still marked the sleeves. "He is still alive?" the queen asked. "Yes, your majesty," the lead medic answered. "Barely. His species is stubborn." Hours earlier, she had watched this human place himself between her daughter and certain death. No hesitation, no calculation, just choice. That disturbed her more than the attack itself. "The attackers?" she asked. "Captured or eliminated," a guard replied. "They belong to a radical faction opposed to peace with Earth." Princess Elira stepped forward. "Can I speak to him?" "I did not understand you before," she said softly, "when you stood so calmly among us." Royal heirs did not become attached to foreign soldiers, and yet this human had already crossed boundaries no treaty had ever touched. Later that cycle, the human embassy sent a formal request. They wished to retrieve Captain Cross and return him to Earth for treatment. The queen read the message in silence. "They want to take him," Elira said, standing across from her mother in the private chamber. "After what he did. But it gives us a debt." They protected allies who could not protect them in return. They formed bonds that made no strategic sense, and when they chose to guard someone. He tried to move, he failed. "Do not struggle," a voice said calmly. Daniel turned his head slightly and froze. Queen Veilric stood at the foot of his bed. Up close, she was terrifying. Taller than any human, her presence filled the room like gravity. "I am the queen of the Virelian Empire," she said. "You will address me when you are able." "Yes, ma'am." "Yes. The human embassy is waiting." "You will remain," Queen Veilric said. Daniel blinked. "With respect, your majesty, I don't belong here." From a galaxy that has just learned what humans are willing to die for. A human had walked into her life for a single duty, and now nothing was the same. Far away, the queen stood alone, staring at a projection of the human star systems. She finally admitted the truth she had been avoiding. Letting the human go was the safest option. And yet, because some debts were too dangerous to leave unpaid. Part 3. When the galaxy learned what humans stand for. In a quiet section of the palace garden, Daniel practiced basic movement drills, slow steps, controlled breathing, balance. The alien guards assigned to watch him observed in silence. They had expected weakness. Instead, they saw patience. They saw discipline. Princess Elira often watched from a distance. At first, she told herself she was simply checking on his recovery. But as the days passed, she realized the truth. She was drawn to the calm way he faced suffering. "You should rest more," she said one day, approaching him. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. "If I stop moving, I won't heal right. We just don't let it decide for us." Some claimed the human had enchanted the princess. Others whispered that he was a secret weapon. The truth was far simpler and far more dangerous. Daniel did not act for power. He acted for people. Queen Veilrix felt the pressure tightening around her empire. Every council meeting grew more heated. "You are sheltering a foreign military asset," one noble argued. "This breaks tradition." Days later, the threat returned, not with explosions, with silence. Long-range sensors detected unidentified vessels approaching the system. No attack formation, no communication, just presence. A message arrived soon after. It was addressed to the Queen: "Hand over the human, or face consequences." The Queen dismissed the council and stood alone before the stars. She had known this moment would come. The galaxy did not tolerate unpredictability, and humans were nothing if not unpredictable. Daniel learned of the message from Princess Elira. "They are afraid of you," she said quietly as they stood in the observation chamber. "Of me?" Daniel frowned. "I'm just one guy." One human changed everything. His movements were slower now, but his purpose was clear. He followed the sound of distant alarms. Princess Elira was returning from a diplomatic wing when the lights cut out. Shadows moved. Her guards fell into defensive formation, but too late. A stun blast dropped two of them instantly. Figures emerged from the darkness, weapons raised. "Princess Elira," a distorted voice said. "Come with us." Fear crept in. The fight was fast, not graceful, not clean. Daniel used the environment, positioning himself between the attackers and the princess. Each movement hurt, each breath burned. A blast struck his chest. He stayed standing. Another hit his leg. He did not fall. Alien guards arrived moments later, finishing the attackers. When it was over, Daniel finally collapsed to one knee. Princess Elira rushed to him. "Why?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "You were still healing." This was no longer about politics. This was about choice. "You were willing to die again," she said to Daniel. He met her gaze. "Yes." "Your Majesty, I." Toward awe, messages flooded in from neutral worlds. "If one human can do this," they asked, "what does it mean to stand with humanity?" Elsewhere, Queen Veilrix addressed a secure galactic channel. "The human stays," she declared, "not as a prisoner, not as a weapon." They cared. Part 4. The human the Queen chose to keep. Below her, alone on the polished floor, stood a single human. Captain Daniel Cross wore simple formal attire, not armor. His injuries had healed, but the memory of pain still lived in his movements. He stood straight anyway, hands at his sides, eyes forward. Princess Elira stood to her mother's right. She had watched him walk into the hall, and her heart had tightened. Not from fear, but from the weight of what was about to happen. The Queen raised her hand. Silence fell. "Today," Queen Veilrix began, "this council was called to decide the fate of a human. The galaxy watches to see what choice we will make." But every time danger appeared, Queen Veilrix turned her gaze to Daniel. "Human," she said, "step forward." "Because when someone puts their trust in you," he said, "you don't abandon it." But the Queen continued, "If he chooses to stay, he will do so as more than a guest." The Queen looked at him again. "The choice is yours, human," she said. "Leave with honor or stay with freedom." Daniel turned back to the Queen. "I was ready to leave," he said honestly. "That's what I thought I was supposed to do." "So it is decided." "Yes." "I was terrified." For the first time, the Empire had not acted out of fear or power. It had acted out of respect. In the weeks that followed, news spread across the stars. Worlds once hesitant to work with humanity reached out, not because of weapons, not because of treaties, but because they had seen what one human would do for someone who trusted him. Daniel became a symbol, not of dominance, but of devotion. And humanity's reputation changed forever. They were no longer seen as weak. They were seen as dangerous in a new way. They cared. One evening, as twin suns dipped below the horizon, Princess Elira stood beside Daniel on the palace walls. "The galaxy will never look at humans the same way again," she said. Daniel smiled slightly. "Good," he replied. "Neither should it."